After Mom passed away, something shifted in my dad. He'd always been a bit particular, organized, maybe a little rigid, but grief warped it. It started subtly. He'd leave out Mom's things, her favorite teacup on the counter, her knitting, needles on the couch. I understood. It was his way of keeping her close, but then he started calling me Sarah. Mom's name the first time. It was in passing. Sarah, could you pass the salt? He corrected himself immediately. His face flushed. Sorry, Emma. Force of habit. I brushed it off. He was grieving. It was understandable, but it kept happening. More and more frequently. In the kitchen, in the garden, even in the middle of conversations. Sarah, did you remember to pay the A? And then he'd catch himself. The apology strained. Emma, God, I'm sorry. It's just... His eyes would glaze over, like he wasn't really seeing me, but seeing her. Then came the clothes. He started buying me dresses that were mom style, floral, flowy, very, not me. I preferred jeans and t-shirts. He'd say, your mother always looked so lovely in these colors. I thought you might like them. They hung in my closet, untouched, like ghosts of a life I never lived. I tried to talk to him about it. Dad, I'm not Mom. I'll never be Mom. I'm Emma. He'd look at me, his eyes filled with a kind of desperate sadness that made my heart ache. I know, sweetheart. I know it's just. She's everywhere. Every corner of this house reminds me of her. But it wasn't just the house, it was me. He started suggesting things, little things at first. Sarah, Emma, darling, would you consider wearing your hair up tonight? Your mother used to wear it like that. Or a little lipstick would really brighten your face. Your mother always... The suggestions became more frequent, more insistent. He bought me Mom's favorite perfume. When I didn't wear it, he'd spray it around the house, filling the air with her scent, a constant, suffocating reminder. One day, I found him going through Mom's jewelry box. He held up a pearl necklace, his eyes shining. This was her favorite. You should wear it. It would look beautiful on you. I recoiled. Dad, no, I can't. He frowned, his face hardening. Why not? It belonged to her. You're her daughter. It's only fitting. Because I'm not her dad. I'm not a replacement. The words burst out of me, raw and painful. He stared at me, his expression unreadable. Don't say that, Emma. Don't ever say that. He put the necklace back in the box, his hands trembling. She's not gone, Emma. She's just different now. That's when I started to get really scared. He'd started rearranging my room, moving furniture, hanging pictures of Mom, replacing my photos with pictures of her. It was like he was trying to erase me, replace me with a carbon copy of his deceased wife. One evening, I came home to find him repainting my bedroom. He'd chosen the exact same shade of lavender that Mom had used in their bedroom. The smell of paint filled the air, thick and cloying. What are you doing, Dad? I asked, my voice trembling. He turned to me, a small, almost manic smile on his face, making it feel more like home. Sarah, like she's still here with us. This is my home, Dad. This is my room. He shook his head, his eyes distant. It's our home, Sarah. Always has been, always will be. The lavender paint felt like a shroud. I felt suffocated, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I wasn't just grieving the loss of my mother, I was grieving the loss of my father, the loss of my own identity. Then he started talking about procedures. He kept saying, there are ways to bring her back, Emma. Science has come so far. He would mention some things that I can't repeat, that I can't explain, other than he thought he could somehow transfer my mom's life into me and make me her. I dismissed it as grief-induced rambling at first, but the frequency increased. The details became more specific. He started researching fertility treatments online, leaving the browser history open on his computer. He asked questions about in vitro fertilization, about genetic engineering. He began spending hours in the basement, ostensibly organizing things, but I heard noises, strange worry sounds, like machinery. I tried to ask him about it, but he'd become secretive, evasive. Just tinkering, Emma. Nothing for you to worry about. One day I found a brochure from a fertility clinic tucked under his pillow. It featured pictures of happy couples holding newborns. Underneath, he'd written in his shaky handwriting, Sarah and John, reborn. That's when I knew. This wasn't just grief. This was something much darker, much more twisted. My father wasn't just trying to keep Mom alive in his memory. He was trying to recreate her, to resurrect her, using me. I wasn't his daughter anymore. I was his canvas, his experiment, his Sarah reborn, and I was terrified. So I thought finding those fertility receipts was bad. I mean, finding out your dad's been planning to artificially inseminate you before your mom even died? Yeah, that's a special kind of evil. But that was just the tip of the iceberg, wasn't it? Like peeling back the first layer of some seriously rotten onion. The next few weeks were a blur, honestly. I was running on pure adrenaline, fear, and about 5 hours of sleep a night. It was like living in a horror movie, except I couldn't just turn it off. This was my life, and my dad. He was the monster under the bed, the thing in the closet, the creepy voice on the other end of the phone. Only he was all of them, all at once. First, there were the cameras. Dad's home office. I shuddered just thinking about it. I started going through Dad's work computer. Of course it was password protected. What was the password? Mom's birthday? Inside, I found a folder titled Sarah's Recovery, and I was so wrong. It was, I don't even have the words, hundreds of photos of me sleeping, in my bed, in my room, in his garage, over months. It just kept going. As if I wasn't a human, but some science project that he could run tests on. Then, in the work computer, I came across a folder hidden deep in the files. It was labeled Project Sarah Reborn. It was like stepping into the mind of a madman. Detailed plans dating back years, spreadsheets tracking my menstrual cycle, notes about substances, dosages, what would be undetectable. And I discovered something worse. Architectural plans for basement renovations. That's when I knew I had to see it for myself. I had to see what he was building down there. It took all the strength I could muster to get back in my car and drive to the house. It was late. I parked down the street and walked the rest of the way. I climbed through a broken window. The main floor of the house was normal. It was clean and there was no dust, so you could tell Aunt Patricia was still coming to clean it. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly crept down to the basement. It took me a few minutes because the steps were creaky. I was terrified of waking up the neighborhood if I slipped and fell, so I went one step at a time. It was freezing and there were some spider webs brushing my face. When I got to the bottom, I was horrified to find there was a new wall put up. What the heck? He had made a door that looked like storage shelves. It was so scary pulling on the door. I was sure someone would be waiting for me, but no one was there. Just that room, it was worse than I could have imagined. He had built a medical suite down in the basement, medical equipment, examination table, 4 stands, monitoring devices, a refrigerator. He had frozen genetic material labeled with my name and the dates I was unconscious. The craziest thing was that all the walls were covered with photos. Me, at every age, morphing into pictures of Mom, and then pictures of Dad's mother. This man believed that he could rebirth these women back into the world, using me. It was twisted. The center of the room was a hospital bed, with restraints, photographed everything. Every single thing. It's like he had been building a lab, building a birthing room down there. He wanted to axe to use me. I needed to get out now. Back at the house, I was packing it up. Dad had a detailed operation to use me as an incubator for his delusions. It was awful. I felt so violated, so used, like I wasn't even a person anymore, just a vessel for his madness. That night, I knew I couldn't stay there, not even for one more second, but I couldn't leave without the evidence. Without proving what he had done, I needed help. I called Mika sobbing. She was amazing. As always, she showed up at my door within minutes, no questions asked. She listened to everything, held me while I cried, and then she got to work. It was time to fight back. That's when we started building our network. We realized we couldn't do this alone. We needed people we could trust. We needed allies. And slowly, painstakingly, we started finding them. Mom's old prayer group from church. I didn't really know any of them that well, and I was so surprised when they got involved. They must have known something was up because they dove right in. Every week I found a fresh-baked dinner on the doorstep. What amazing people. First, we reached out to our neighbor, Mr. Lee. Had already been incredibly supportive, calling the police the night of the attack. But he was also observant. He'd seen things he hadn't understood at the time. He started keeping a log for us, a log of everything he saw, everything he heard. What a hero! Contractors coming to the house at odd hours, deliveries of medical equipment, late-night activity in the garage. It was like piecing together a puzzle, and Mr. Lee was giving us all the missing pieces. He said he even remembered seeing Dad carrying me to the car multiple times during those days after Mom's funeral. Then, there was the contractor who'd renovated the basement. It took some convincing, but I finally got him to admit what he'd been told. Dad had wanted a basement room renovated into what looked like a medical suite. He claimed it was for home care for his sick wife. The contractor thought it was odd, since everyone knew Mom had already passed. But the money was good, and it wasn't his business to ask questions. I was grateful he didn't question it. And finally, there was Dad's childhood friend, Marcus. He revealed some pretty disturbing details about Dad's childhood. Apparently, Dad's mother had died in childbirth. The family had told him that he killed his own mom. Dad's grandmother had basically raised him, and she told him about this all the time. Trauma shaped how he viewed women, death, and rebirth. As the weeks went on, our network grew. Each person brought something different to the table: information, support, resources, but most importantly, they brought hope. They made me feel like I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't alone. But the one thing that kept me going was the proof. The fertility receipts, the journal entries, the photos, the medical records, the security footage. Every piece of evidence was another brick in the wall we were building. Against him, a wall he couldn't tear down. We made copies of everything, stored them in multiple locations, just in case. It was like preparing for war, because in a way, we were at war with my father, with his delusions, with the twisted reality he had created, and we weren't going to back down. We were going to fight for my freedom, for my identity, for my life. We were going to break the cycle, no matter what it took. We had to Dot as her father languished in the psychiatric facility, awaiting transfer to a more permanent location. A chilling calm settled over Emma's life. The frantic energy of gathering evidence, dodging Patricia's manipulations, and navigating the legal system began to ebb, replaced by a quiet determination. But she wasn't naive. She knew this wasn't the end. It was merely a temporary reprieve. The lawyer, a man whose expensive suit couldn't quite mask his unease, laid out the grim reality. Miss Emma, or rather, Miss Catherine, he corrected himself, fumbling with the paperwork. While your father's condition warrants long-term care, there's no guarantee he'll remain there indefinitely. Facilities are overcrowded. Legal challenges arise. Things can change. His words were a cold splash of water on her fragile hope. She had to be prepared. The first step was securing her safety. Her support network rallied, brainstorming ideas. Security systems were upgraded. Self-defense classes were booked. But those were merely band-aids on a deeper wound. Emma needed legal protections, something that would hold firm even if her father somehow managed to slip through the cracks of the system. Mika suggested a restraining order, but Emma knew it wouldn't be enough. Restraining orders were pieces of paper. Pieces of paper a man obsessed with rewriting reality wouldn't hesitate to ignore. They needed something stronger, something that would actively prevent him from contacting her, approaching her, even thinking about her in a harmful way. Jordan, ever resourceful, connected Emma with a legal aid organization specializing in stalking and harassment cases. The lawyer there, a sharp no-nonsense woman named Ms. Alvarez, listened intently as Emma recounted her story, her voice unwavering despite the horror it conveyed. What we need, Ms. Alvarez said, tapping her pen against the legal pad, is not just a restraining order, but a civil commitment order, coupled with a permanent injunction against contact. We need to convince the court that your father poses a credible threat to your safety and that only permanent confinement and a legally binding prohibition can ensure your well-being. The process was daunting. It required extensive psychiatric evaluations of her father, testimonies from expert witnesses, and a thorough presentation of all the evidence she had painstakingly gathered. It meant reliving the trauma, exposing the most vulnerable parts of herself to the scrutiny of the court. But Emma was ready. The weeks leading up to the hearing were a blur of depositions, meetings, and sleepless nights. Patricia, surprisingly, became a key witness. Her testimony filled with remorse and a chilling clarity about the depth of her brother's delusion. Uncle Robert, finally free of his wife's influence, provided invaluable insight into the family dynamics and the long history of her father's obsessive tendencies. Then, one afternoon, as Emma was returning from a therapy session, it happened. She was walking down a busy street, lost in thought, when a van pulled up beside her. A man jumped out, grabbed her arm, and tried to drag her inside. She screamed, fought back with every ounce of strength she possessed. "Sarah! Sarah! I've come for you!" The man shouted, his eyes glazed over with a manic intensity. Passersby stopped, stared, unsure of what was happening. Emma kicked, screamed louder, managing to break free from his grip. She stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest. As the man hesitated, confused, before jumping back into the van, which sped away, the police arrived quickly, sirens wailing. She gave them a description of the man in the van, her voice shaking but determined. It turned out the vehicle had been stolen from a nearby parking lot. The driver was never apprehended. The attempted abduction sent shockwaves through her support network. It was a stark reminder of the danger she faced. A chilling confirmation of her father's enduring influence, Ms. Alvarez immediately filed an emergency motion, demanding an immediate hearing on the civil commitment order and permanent injunction. The hearing was swift and decisive. The attempted abduction, combined with the overwhelming evidence of her father's obsession and his deteriorating mental state, left the judge with no choice. She granted the civil commitment order, ensuring that her father would remain in a secure psychiatric facility for the foreseeable future. She also issued a permanent injunction, legally prohibiting him from ever contacting her, directly or indirectly, for the rest of his life. The injunction was sweeping. It prohibited him from sending her letters, making phone calls, using third parties to communicate with her, even mentioning her name in public. It was, in essence, a legal declaration that he had no claim on her life, no right to intrude on her freedom. With the legal battles finally behind her, Emma could focus on rebuilding her life. It wasn't easy. The trauma lingered, casting a long shadow over her days, but she was no longer alone. She had a community of support, a network of friends and allies who believed in her, who championed her right to be safe and free. She started small, taking art classes, volunteering at a local animal shelter, rediscovering the joys of simple things. She learned to trust again, to open herself up to new relationships, to embrace the future without fear. One day, as she was walking through a park, she saw a little girl playing with her mother. The girl looked up, smiled at Emma, and waved. Emma smiled back, a genuine, heartfelt smile. In that moment, she realized she had finally reclaimed her identity. She was no longer defined by her father's obsession, no longer bound by his twisted fantasies. She was Catherine, a survivor, a warrior, a woman who had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. She was free, and nothing, not even her father's enduring delusion, could ever take that away from her again.